Hey guys, welcome back to Crescent Gaming. I'm Looseie, and today we're going to be doing Destiny 2 as our featured review in our MMO series. So without any further ado, let's just jump right in. As you can see on screen, here's our score review and breakdown for the game. And what we're going to do now is just go a little bit into further depths on each category, and I'm going to go ahead and make timestamps so you guys can go to the sections you'd like to watch. So let's get into it. So the first thing that you notice when you start playing the game is the visuals. I mean, they come right out, especially in some of the story scenes right when you start off. You notice that the game plays really smooth. The FPS is steady all the time. I mean, look at the detail in some of these maps that they have. Now, this is one of the kind of beginning parts when you go through, and you're going to see all different kind of little caves and stuff like this. And it's very, the environments, even though they are limited to an extent when you go out to different zones, they also are very detailed. I mean, the shadows look great, the lighting looks great, you can see here, and the performance didn't suffer. And I was actually recording this and another screen at the same time. I was trying something out and it still ran really smooth. You know, so you go from little desert areas and caves. Sometimes the Europa now, which is kind of the frozen continent, you go to places like that. So there's a lot of different, there's a lot of different scenes that you're going to see, and they do a really good job. I think the art team does a really good job bringing this out, and the performance, like I said, it's pretty damn, it's almost perfect. It's about as good as you can expect, especially keeping in mind that it's an MMO. You're playing with other people, you know, so whenever you have other people logging into the same server as you're always gonna have lag. So I think they do a really good job. Now you see the bike here I'm riding is one of the little things that you get to kind of help you move around the world a little quicker. Now it's really cool, you know, like I said, this is one of the forest places that you're going to end up going. So there's a lot of different places, and it's just, I have to say, it's a pretty clean packaged game when it comes to the performance, how it looks. I mean, some people are going to say, oh, well, they might have reused textures and reused assets. Look, I mean, we can go down that rabbit hole another day. That's kind of silly to really do stuff like that. I mean, yeah, maybe they used some from Destiny 1. Look, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Destiny 2. And then this was one of the little places I couldn't not leave this out, because when I first came here, I'm like, man, this is awesome. It was something you go through, and I actually wasn't supposed to go there because I think it's part of the story, and I didn't have the quest for it yet. But it just goes to show you how they really made some of these environments really, really unique. It's almost like there's this heat source in the middle of the planet. You keep going further and further down, so it's really cool. And I think that I'm going to end up cutting it off right before you guys see me fall, because it's just, I mean, it's not a cool look. So anyway, going back to the main point, visuals, it is definitely top tier when it comes to visuals, performance, and all that. Very, very high quality. Alright guys, now when it comes to the cash shop, this is always, you know, usually a touchy subject for everybody. Of course, it's free to play. There's a few paid expansions that unlock new zones that you can't get without. You can't continue campaign modes and get exotic weapons and certain things of that nature without those. So keep that in mind. You can't get stasis also without having Beyond Light. However, there's a lot of cosmetic things that you're going to find in the cash shop. So, you know, I wouldn't necessarily worry about that acronym here. However, the one thing that I guess where I'm kind of torn at with the cash shop is, and this is a real hot topic in the community, is the whole sunsetting thing. And from, you know, my perspective, just one of the things that I see is that sometimes with that whole sunsetting, I don't think they realize that they accidentally remove things that people have paid for already and then kind of throw them away, and then you can get to use it back. That's kind of shady in my opinion, when a purchase that I made with stuff that was in it is no longer viable. But that's another discussion. There's plenty of other people talking about sunsetting. I don't want to get into that, but that is kind of part of the thing that goes along. So you do have to keep that in mind when it comes to, you know, do you want to get this, do you want to get that. Now, as far as, again, going back to the acronym, really there's just a lot of cosmetic things here. You have different bikes that you can get, different ships that you can get, different colors. And of course, there's a ton of actual colors and different things that you can put on your characters. And there's the vault, so you can put certain things in there and take it out for the other character, vice versa. And there's a lot of skins for some of these exotics, as you can see, the weapon ornaments, and you can slap that on whatever. So it's not bad. I mean, it's not a bad cash out. It's not like it's going to just eat away at your time if you don't do it, you know. So it's not really that big a deal. There are, you know, like you did just see, I was hovering over that bike. So I mean, it's not like a bike you're going to use in combat. So can you say that, oh, you got the pay to win bike? Well, for what? You can't even use it in PvP. That's silliness. So anyway, it's not, honestly, the cash shop isn't that bad. There are just some things, like I said, the whole sun setting, it kind of, and that kind of makes it weird when you using things from expansion and you thought that it would be viable later on because you paid for it, and then it's not. I know the thing happens in all MMOs, but I think with a first-person shooter, it's a little bit different, especially since you don't actually gain levels in this game. There could maybe be I understand what they want to do with the concept, but I think that to get more people to pay, you're gonna have to change this a little bit. All right, now we get to the fun part. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into PvP. Now, I know that there's a lot of mixed feeling right now, and that's where the score is kind of where it's at, because I do agree with a lot of the people in the community that the stasis and some of the way the meta works, and you know, it is leaning. And again, you can play how you want. I definitely want to preface that you can play the game how you want and use the guns you want to, but there are some benefits to using some certain ones and certain stasis, especially the whole freezing in place crap. That's something that, man, in FPS games, it's just so aggravating to be frozen in place, especially when time to kill is under the average, you know, average time to kill is less than a second. So that's really it's a thing that gets under the skin. Now, I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. Now, with that being said, there's quite a few different modes. There were more a long time ago when I remember first touching the game and first playing it. They have removed some things. It seems like now pretty much all of them are the item level doesn't matter, but the effects and the mods and the item itself still completely matter, and the stats matter of your characters. So you do have to think about that when you want to make a build to go into PvP or something like that. There's some guides out, you know, on YouTube, and you can check those out. Some really helpful guides too. Anyway, aside from that, I enjoy it. I mean, you can see here in the game footage, I am absolutely atrocious. It was like I think my first match back. So again, some of these modes are new and to me different. I didn't exactly know, what I was doing in some of those modes, but I still had a blast. You know, I was running around with a blue auto rifle, I think, and I got a few kills. You know, I did get some kills. I don't know if we ended up winning that match or not. I think we did. But regardless, it was kind of crazy at the end. So anyway, I think the PvP's there. You have different modes, 3v3, 6v6. You have the gambits. You have kind of, I don't know if some of you guys have played Aeon, where they had that one mode with the dredging where you did 6 versus 6 versus your team, and your team were rushing the race to see who could either kill the other team first or go kill the main boss first. So there's a mode like that where it's kind of PvX, so it's PvE, PvP at the same time. So there's a few different modes that you can do, and I mean, some people just play this game strictly for the multiplayer. So there's a lot of I guess you could say time you can sink into it. Now, aside from them trying to balance things out and get all that, you got to remember that this company just removed himself from Activision, so it's going to be a little rocky road for him. But PvP is really hard to get down in any game, so it's you know, it's definitely better than the majority of them, I have to say. It's done really well. I just think there are some things that they could fix and that they could work on that would make it a tad bit easier, especially for some of the new people just coming in. I also want to say, guys, that I think it is definitely important to note in the PvP that because it's gone to free to play, there has been a rise of cheaters. So that is something that you're gonna have to deal with. And Bungie seems to be slow to react. Let's say that. When it comes to the community, guys, I have to say that it's not as, again, you have to keep in mind before, let me preface this way. It's a FPS. It's a lot of story-driven content, so there is a kind of emphasis on solo play, except when you get to Pinnacles and you want to do raids, and of course PvP. Now, however, the community, one of the reasons why I guess the score is where it's at is because they did just tear away from Activision. So Bungie, you know, is doing their own thing now, which I think, hey, 2 thumbs up. I think you guys are in the right direction for sure. I think you're heading in the right direction. You're listening to the community. You know, they're listening to the community more. They're attempting to revive certain things. They've had some, you know, promises that they've given out. So we'll see, you know, how all that folds out. It seems like they want to be more transparent with the community, so that's always a plus. It's always a good thing. So I think the community's pretty solid. I haven't personally run across anyone toxic yet. I'm sure that exists, especially in the competitive PvP modes. But look, you're gonna have that in any game that you have. So that's definitely not something that you want to focus on. Just, you know, keep that in mind, obviously. So the community, like I said, very good. You do have fire teams. I'm sorry, fire teams. That's what your group is normally called. These, you know, what they consider a guild in this game, where you can get in with different people, so you can make squads and always have someone to talk to. It's much more voice active, obviously, game than typing. Just usually FPSs are generally like that. You know, Discords and stuff. People want to get on that. So and being on PC, it's easy to Discord and play the game at the same time. I know you console people can't stand that, or it's harder to do that, but, you know, PC master rates, whatever. So, but again, I'm sorry, I got on a little tangent, but I think the community is pretty solid. I think that along with them being transparent, the devs being transparent, and trying to listen back, taken feedback, there's also a ton of people playing the game. So that's also a good sign. That means things are at least decent. Again, free to play, so keep that in mind. But the community is, yeah, like I said, it's pretty solid. So you're not really too many gripes from here. All right, now we're going to get into another kind of touchy subject, the grind. And one of the reasons that I've scored it so high is because of what is known in the community as called God rolls. And this is when you're farming a weapon and you're hoping that it has these best in slot statistics on it. That way you have, you know, obviously the fastest time to kill, the easiest time to kill, quickest reload. You always have bullets, things. I mean, there's all different kinds of mods. And that's one of the things that you're going to find yourself grinding out a lot. Not only the weapons, but you'll be grinding out different mods. And because of the season system and the whole sunsetting thing, you'll end up grinding some of the same things out later on down the line that you already did and had the good God rolls on, and have to do it all over again. So it can be kind of shenanigan wise that, you know, like I talked about in the cash shop. The one thing that I can't stand is when I paid for something, I don't give a shit how long it was ago. You don't take that away from me. I don't care what the content was, however irrelevant you may have seen it. That's not something you do. You don't just take people's stuff away from them, you know. Anyway, aside from that, I'm sorry, I got a little tangent there. You know, there's a very heavy grind when it comes into that. You don't necessarily have crafting in this game per se. You do get materials, and you have vendors that you can go to and trade certain things out. You can get exotics now. They did introduce that now, and you can go into previous seasons and get exotics as well. So that introduces a whole nother grind aspect. You can go back and get some of the old weapons. So I think that's really cool. That's a good thing. I think everything should always be accessible. you know, for an FPS, you might as well just keep tons of guns. I mean, it's not like you have your traditional third person perspective kind of, you know, housing an open world and combat system that some people may be more accustomed to in other MMOs. So you have to kind of figure a way to merge that in. So the grind there, very high. Really nothing that you can do with the cash out behind that. So it just takes some time. And then sometimes you get the first weapon and it gets the role you want on it. So it's all very RNG based, you know, and you can change some things, and then it's all again how min-max that you want to be when you're making your build and what kind of content you're doing. But don't get it twisted. You don't need god rolls to complete the in-game content. I mean, obviously a god roll helps, and the better your equipment and the better stats you have on it, and the better mods, yeah, that does add on to it, but that won't just completely kill it for you. But there's definitely a lot to grind in this game. But because it's first person, the shooter and the combat's real good, it's still really fun. So alright, so the first section we're going to jump into, guys, is PvE. Now, it's actually, the thing I'm going to touch on first will be the story. And it's actually done really, really nice. They did a good job, nice voice acting, nice cutscenes, everything's very scripted, very, very good. And it's actually pretty, it keeps you into it. If you're into it, you know, if you're in the story. I know some people just smash, and there is the option to just smash, escape. So you don't have to worry about it. If you don't want to do it, you're going to have to. But the story is pretty cool. And they do lock some really cool items behind you completing the story mode. So the next part we're going to jump into is usually the content. You'll be doing quite a few things solo. You can play the game solo a lot if you want to. There's nothing really stopping you here. It's very sandboxes right now, and I think that they're in a kind of a hard spot where they want to make it an MMO, but they're not exactly sure how right now with the story and leading this and that. So that's kind of wishy-washy. So you can play a lot solo, but there is a lot of group content as well. You have strikes that you can do, the little 3-man things whenever you're running around the world, just doing random quests and little stuff outside, bounties and things. You'll see, you know, people run around, and you'll end up doing a few things together, like maybe one of the heroic events or something in that nature. Just random folks will show up and you'll start doing stuff. So that's really cool. Really cool, excuse me. Now, another thing to keep in mind, guys, is that the game is free to play. So there's a lot of base content, and it's really high quality. The combat is very fun. I have to say the gunplay is fun. The sliding around mechanics, you have a much quicker kind of pace. The double jump, the flight jump, depending on what character you're playing. And there's 3 different classes, jumping into the next topic. And they roughly play relatively the same in their movement mechanics, but their ultimate is the thing that they do share differently, and how they spend that ultimate energy. The grenades work differently in their class ability. You have the tank or the titan, can drop a shield that can block projectiles and enemies from walking through it. You have the warlock, I was going to say sorcerer. You have the warlock that drops a energy well by default that heals him and whoever allies come into the low well as well. And then you have the hunter, who by default can shoot an arrow. They can also go invisible. So the hunters, now that's just those are the 3 classes, and those are without the expansion. So there is some expansion locked stasis things that are locked behind the expansions that are kind of broken right now in PvP, but we'll touch on that later. Alright guys, so that brings us to the end of the video. My final thoughts are, especially being a free-to-play game, it is solid. I would recommend it. It's definitely worth your time just to even check it out. And remember, it's on consoles too, so you can check it out there too. Now, it's not cross-play, so keep that in mind. If you did find the information today useful and helpful, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe, as it's definitely going to help the channel to grow. And we appreciate everything that you guys are doing. So until next time, we'll see y'all later.